Okay, welcome everyone to another Get Legit webinar using local policy to scale your cannabis business with Executive Director of the Nevada County Cannabis Alliance, Diana Gamzon, and Cannabis Compliance Officer with the Nevada County Cannabis Department, Sue Kaplan. Today is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. My name is Erin, and I am the Education and Communications Manager here at the Cannabis Alliance. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. It is our hope that anyone interested in commercial cannabis here in Nevada County will take the time to tune into these webinars, educate themselves, and continue to be or become stewards of the environment and of our community. The Get Legit educational series provides the preparation necessary to assist in securing a local cultivation permit and state cultivation license. The series includes webinars, support groups, business skills training, and a mentor program. All webinars are online, free of charge, and open to the public. So, what is the Alliance? The Alliance is a nonprofit trade association representing the local cannabis industry here in Nevada County. Our mission is to support public policy initiatives through representative advocacy and provide educational opportunities for business growth and success. There are many ways to get involved with the Alliance, and one of those is to become a member. The Nevada County Cannabis Alliance plays a vital role in shaping policies that strengthen the economic sustainability and success of our locally licensed cannabis industry. If you are a licensed cannabis business here in Nevada County that has benefited from cannabis policies that we have worked on, we would love for you to join our membership to ensure that we can continue serving our local cannabis community. We appreciate your support so much. There are services that we provide to our members, and they consist of a consistent voice and representation locally and at the statewide level, year-round continuing education that includes compliance and regulatory workshops, business training skills, farming practices, seminars, and more. We help you navigate the permit and ongoing compliance processes with the resources and support you need. We have a buddy program that pairs permitted farmers with new farmers who want to learn from more experienced growers. And we have seasonal industry mixers and events for community and connection. Another way to get involved with the Alliance is to become a sponsor. If you are a local business looking to support the cannabis industry here in Nevada County, we would love for you to join us. We're so grateful for our current sponsors who believe in the work that we do, and we could not do this work without you. Also, thank you. I will list the ones that are currently sponsoring our organization below. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, you can email me at erin@nccannabisalliance.org or visit our website at nccannabisalliance.com. I'll put all of these links in the chat for you to reference later, and they will be available in the comment section on YouTube when we post this video. You can follow us on Facebook at /Nevada County Alliance or Instagram, which is at Nevada County Alliance. We have a bi-monthly newsletter you can subscribe to, and any additional questions, feel free to email me at erin@nccannabisalliance.org. Okay, we have two other Get Legit webinars coming up. We have one on March 3rd, or March 5th, excuse me, on Thursday, March 5th. It's called Cannabis Farming Basics for the Home Grower. It's a webinar series that we started back in November, and this is part 3. It's drying, curing, and storing your harvest. Whether you're new to growing or you want to sharpen your skills, this series is packed with insider knowledge for the home grower. I'll put the link in the chat as well to register. Another webinar that we have coming up is Amending Native Soil. That's on Thursday, March 26th. From 3 to 4 p.m. This webinar will guide cannabis growers in Nevada County through the fundamentals of amending native soil for optimal plant health and yield. I will also put that link in the chat to register. And of course, you can find all of our Get Legit upcoming webinars and previous webinars at nccannabisalliance.org/getlegit. And I want to give a shout out to our allied industry business sponsors. Like I mentioned before, we have Ag Natural, Cramner Engineering, Plan Air Landscape Architecture, Humboldt Seed Company, Mr. B's Green Trees, Gold Coast Botanicals, and Elevation 2477. Thank you all so much for your support, and we're so happy to have you on board. The format of today's webinar will be that Diana and Sue will give a presentation with a Q&A to follow. If you do have questions, your participation is encouraged, and there's a chat section and Q&A for you to use. And feel free to ask any questions that you may have, as this will make the webinar more useful for everyone. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website at nccannabisalliance.org/getlegit. And I will go ahead and pass it to Diana and Sue to introduce themselves. Welcome.
So much, Erin. Hi, everybody. My name's Diana Gamzon. I'm the executive director of the Nevada County Cannabis Alliance and really excited for today's workshop.
I'm excited to be here too. My name is Sue Kaplan, and I work at the county in the Department of Code and Cannabis. And I am your local regulator, as well as a resource for anyone that wants to expand or has questions about how to stay compliant as a legal cultivator in the county. And I'm super excited to be here.
So today, what we're going to do is we're going to be focusing on local policies. And these are all policies, as Erin described, our organization, we're a trade association, and we represent our local cannabis industry in advocating for policies that benefit our local industry. And so we're going to be going over local policy that has been passed in the past 6 years. We want everybody to either be reminded of what has passed or be informed of what has passed so that you can grow and expand, look at new opportunities, and just plan for your business's future. And we'll also be going over some regulatory updates. And we are always here as a resource for any questions that you may have or to help with support as you make changes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start with some items. If you have questions, put them in the chat. If you want to raise your hand, just do so at the end. Write down your question, do so at the end. We'll probably do questions at the end. And let's get into it. So, these are ordinance changes that have happened since 2020. Our ordinance was passed in 2019. So these are changes that have been passed since then. The first one is a processing license. And what this is processing is any method used to prepare cannabis for commercial sale. So that's drying, cleaning, curing, grading, trimming, packaging. Um, and this processing license is available on ag zone land, AE, and forestry land. So that's all land where commercial cannabis is already allowed. And what this allows for is a business to process or trim cannabis for licenses, cannabis for their license, as well as additional licensees. And just to clarify, anybody who has a cannabis cultivation permit, they can trim their own cannabis. They don't need a processing license. However, some people in the county have benefited from this because they add in an addition, they grow their business to process for other people. Or if they have additional license types, they can process all their cannabis on site. And so this activity has to happen on a site that already has existing cultivation. Now that's a local requirement. That's not a state requirement. So that's the processing license that is available. Anything you want to add to that?
No, it's a fairly straightforward process at the county to add that. It would be simply done through an amendment, and you would identify where that processing activity is going to occur, if it's inside an existing support structure or if you're adding a structure. It's fairly straightforward.
So the next thing that we want to talk about, and this is actually something that we spent several years working on, it included a lot of community and industry input, and working with the Board of Supervisors to get this passed. But initially, Nevada County only approved up to 10,000 square foot of cultivation. That was the maximum. And so we advocated for expansion and we're very successful in that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show the expansion that has been approved or was approved, and this was in about 3 years ago. So this is for cultivation on um, ag zone, ag E or AE and forestry where commercial cultivation is allowed. And previously, it shows you what the original canopy was and then the new canopy. And so the best way to describe this is starting if you had 2 acres to 4.99. Originally, you were allowed to grow 500 square feet. Now you are allowed, and oh, it's still at 500. All right, you
I
can't.
think that one category.
That one stayed the same. But if you were cultivating on up to 9.99, you're basically allowed to grow an additional expansion amount of 12,330.
1,200.
1,238. Sorry, I'm dyslexic. And the new max canopy is 3738. And just so everybody knows, there was a slightly complicated equation to get this, but it basically expands you're allowed to grow an additional 50% of your support area. And so that's how this calculation comes to be, but anybody is welcome to screenshot this to show what the changes are. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, I'd like to say, when I'm out in the field talking with everyone, I'm surprised at how many cultivators were unaware of these bonus canopy expansions. And there's a real sweet spot if you have a 5 to 20 acre parcel. These really give you an opportunity to grow the scale of your operation without incurring a lot of extra expense, especially between the 5 and 20 acre parcel size, because it shouldn't change the state license overly. When you're cultivating 10,000 and you decide you want to go to approximately 15,000 under the new scheme, it could potentially triple your state license fee. So when I'm consulting with people, I make them aware of what the availability is, and then you want to run the numbers, of course, to make sure that expansion makes sense for you.
Mm-hmm. And so if you're on up to 19.99 acres, originally you were allowed to grow 5,000 square feet. Now you're allowed to grow around an additional 2,400, which brings you to around 7,400. Now, if you were on 20 to 39.99, originally you were at 10,000, now you're at 14,950. So it's an additional just under 5,000 square feet that you're allowed to cultivate. So it's pretty significant. Now, if you're at that 20 to 39.99 acreage, your canopy for that new expansion zone, the setback does expand to 150 feet. So that's just as your people are looking at their premise, just making sure that you can fit that under the 150 feet.
It's the new canopy that's subject to the 150 setback. The previous canopy is grandfathered in at the 100 foot, just to clarify.
Thank you for that. Yep. And then additional expansion is if you're up to if you're 80 acres or more, you can grow up to up to an acre. So that's the largest you can grow in the county, but you need a minimum of 80 acres for that. At 60 to 79.99, you can grow up to 30,000 square feet. And from 40 feet to 59.99, you can grow up to 20,000 square feet. Now, for all of those canopies that I just mentioned, any new canopy would have to meet a 200 foot setback. So that's another thing that you want to take into consideration.
Can we talk about slinging parcels together?
Yes.
To increase canopy?
So the next thing is, which we are very, very excited about, and this was something that was worked into the ordinance very strategically, but it's the ability to use neighboring parcels to achieve these goals. And so, Sue, I'll let you take it away.
So what the new ordinance allowed was to have instances where you have common control or common ownership of an adjacent parcel where there is a direct connection between parcels. You can add the acreage together to get to a total acreage size to dictate your canopy, as long as the parcels you're connecting are greater than 5 acres each and zoned appropriately. So this can be done if you own the neighboring parcel, or you have an arrangement with a neighbor and you execute an agricultural lease that gives you common control of the parcel for purposes of cannabis. You do not need to expand your canopy onto that neighbor's parcel. You simply have a greater allocation available to you under these zone acreage sizes. And the other part that was a huge win is that when these parcels are joined together, you now only need to have a primary residence on one of the parcels. That was a real issue when the program first started, is that people were buying raw land and then having to build houses on each parcel.
Yeah.
Did I cover that enough?
Perfectly. Yeah. We are very, very happy with that was included in the ordinance. And all of this policy advocacy, it really comes from you, our members, the community, providing feedback on how to best advocate for your needs. So I'm going to stop the share because we're going to stop share. Okay, there we go. And let's get back into some more stuff. So next thing we're going to talk about is on-farm vertical integration. And this is a really great way for people to be able to grow their business and make plans for the future. All of these activities I'm about to mention can only take place on land where commercial cultivation is currently allowed, which is ag, AE, and forestry. The first one is distribution is now allowed, and this happened back in 2023. Distribution is allowed on farm, so that's moving cannabis between various licensees, moving finished cannabis to retailers, and arranging for testing of cannabis goods. And that can all happen on ag zone land. It has to take place, of course, in a building, and you have to meet all state regulations. But with a amendment to your ADP, you're able to get a distribution license. You have to make sure that any activities associated with the distribution license are limited to a maximum of 6 vehicle trips per day. And the maximum structure that it could be in this activity is 1,000 square feet. And that number would be subtracted from your overall support area number. So that's distribution. Do you want to say about distribution?
Nope, you covered it.
Okay. Next is non-volatile manufacturing, also known as type 6. So what this includes is carbon dioxide, ethanol, non-hydrocarbon based or other solvents such as water, vegetable glycerin, vegetable oil, animal fat, and glycerin. So making salves, making tinctures, some edibles, anything that is manufactured using non-volatile substances can be now done on the farm. Your structure is limited to 1,000 square feet. And again, it's subtracted from your support area.
Diana is right. There is a limitation of 1,000 square feet, but you could conceive of a structure that's larger, but the area that's allocated to that activity is going to be maxed out at 1,000.
Yeah. The next items for on-farm vertical integration that were also added in 2023 are a storefront retail sales, and non-storefront retail sales. So storefront, well, we'll start with non-storefront retail sales. Non-storefront retail sales is conducting cannabis sales exclusively by delivery. The location is closed to the public. And many cultivation licensees use these for the sale of cannabis at events like Emerald Cup, Hall of Flowers. So it's not, some people don't use it for traditional delivery, but they want to have a retail license because they're going to a lot of events. Only local product can be sold. And what that means is only cannabis products that are grown, cultivated, manufactured, or processed on site or originating from a licensed permitted cannabis operation in Nevada County may be sold. So that's really important to know. And that was strategically put in there to support our local cannabis industry and promote our local cannabis industry. The non-storefront retail license would also be an amendment to your ADP, which is a fairly straightforward process. The other type of retail that is also allowed as part of this on-farm vertical integration is a storefront retail model. And this is again on ag zone land, so at the farm. Storefront retail, that means it is open to the public. And again, only local product can be sold in this, just as I mentioned for delivery. What's really important about the storefront retail model is it requires a use permit process. And, anybody who is considering this or thinking of expanding their business, I definitely would encourage you to look into the use permit process. It's not an ADP process. It's a lengthy process. It requires a public hearing and it involves neighborhood engagement. And so it's currently we have one retail model operating on the farm in the county. And shout out to DENCOB. Definitely encourage people to go there if they're interested in this type of model. And so all of these activities, did you want to say something about retail before I move on?
It's also capped at 1,000 square feet when you identify the space that you're going to utilize for the retail sales component. And Diana is right. It's a little bit of a heavier lift to get that approved because it's a discretionary project. And so there's just a little more intensity to that process.
Anybody who is seriously considering that, we would encourage them to talk to us, talk to the county, because you really need to have an ideal property. I would not want somebody to venture down this road without understanding what kind of neighborhood they're in and probability of getting this passed, to be honest.
What we would recommend is, of course, you would talk with the Cannabis Alliance because they've got a lot of experience in helping to advocate for someone and might be part of your process. But also, you can at the county get a planner consultation, and it's a meeting with the right people in the planning department that are very familiar with cannabis and all of our land use regulations. So I would encourage that step as well.
Great. And so while all of these are now available on farm, we are so excited that this passed. We advocated really hard for on-farm vertical integration so farmers could have full independence. This allows a farmer to get a micro business license. Now, what a micro business license is, it must include at least 3 of the following activities, and that is cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and retail. And a micro business has been really smart for some operators because it makes sense financially. It's lower fees, and it streamlines everything into one license.
It is lower fees at the state, so there are strategic reasons to do it, and it also gives you control of your product. I can't tell you how many times I'm out in the field talking with someone and they have a horror story for me about losing control of their product, and it's down in LA, and someone calls and says, I can get you, some terrible figure. And so by taking control of your farm and doing this vertical integration, you just have more control over your business and then the potential to sell at a higher price because you could make your own finished goods.
Okay. The other thing that was added, and thank you for that, Sue. Couldn't agree more. The other thing that was added with some of those ordinance changes in 2023 is that distribution and manufacturing, both volatile and non-volatile, so volatile is allowed, and testing is all allowed in industrial zoning, which is M1 zoning in the county. And this is really important because someone might not be a farmer, but they still want to have a distribution business or a manufacturing business or open a testing lab. You can do that in the industrial zoning M1 in the county. And so that was a really great way to continue to expand economic opportunities.
Did you want to show the slide, or do you want me to just discuss where those M1 zones are?
I wasn't planning on, we can do
We
it.
don't have to. No, I just mentioned,
Yeah.
if you're interested in this,
Mhm.
just be aware we haven't had any applications yet for a testing lab or for volatile manufacturing, but the zones that are available in the county are all clustered around the airport location where there's a lot of mixed use. And if someone were to take that on and want to, yeah, thank you, Diana. The purple areas, you can see a little M1 clustering near the airport primarily. If someone were to go down that path, I would also encourage early on a planner consultation because these also are considered depending on the nature. So for instance, volatile manufacturing, that would trigger a public process as well, discretionary. They would want to make sure that all the hazards are mitigated for a use like that. So, but it's amazing that it's available, and we'd really like to see a business come into the county, and so that people wouldn't have to get their testing done wherever they're having to get their testing.
I would love to have testing back in the county. Thanks for providing that slide, Sue. All right, some other stuff. So cannabis events are now allowed in the county, and we are so very, very, very excited about this. What this could do is allow for various types of cannabis events. This could be a cannabis conference, film screenings, cannabis farmers markets. The key with a cannabis event is that there can be cannabis educational events all day long. You don't need a permit. But if the sale of cannabis happens, it becomes a cannabis event and you need to get a permit for that. The specific zoning, do you have?
Yes, I did. Right there for you, dear.
Perfect. So the specific zoning is M1, which is industrial zoning, BP, which is business park zoning, C1 and C2, which are commercial districts. And these would be centered around North San Juan area and Soda Springs.
Yes, those are two
Yeah, two
additional
additional.
zones. So these are the
Yeah,
generic zones,
yeah,
as well as North San Juan Community Center
yeah.
and Soda Springs Community Center. So those are the areas.
Hmm. And we're really, if anybody is interested in hosting cannabis events, we are, please give us a shout. We would love to work with somebody who's interested in cannabis events. We've seen really great examples in other counties of cannabis farmers markets, and we're just dying for someone to take this on and do it here. It does require getting a state license. You have to be permitted by this or licensed by the state to be a cannabis event organizer, and then you have to get a state license for that cannabis event.
Yeah, it's not there are insurance requirements from the county standpoint when you go to get your administrative development permit for your event. The county is going to be looking at things like, safety and security, ingress and egress, whether there's enough toilets for everyone, how much of the parking area is taken up. So there's a number of steps to kind of work through, but it is the next evolution of how cannabis businesses grow and succeed. So
Yeah.
we can like envision some
Really cool,
events.
really cool event, and it provides for direct to consumer opportunities, tourism opportunities. And I'm really excited about opportunities that could showcase the cultural heritage and the legacy of cannabis cultivation out here in Nevada County. So other opportunities to, expand your business. The next thing that happened last year, 2024, was they all blend together, was cannabis retail. So the county approved an ordinance to allow for retail, and not a on-farm, or on-farm retail already existed, but this is more of a
Just full dispense.
full-on dispensary retail. And the two locations that were chosen, or two areas, were North San Juan and Soda Springs. And so currently, the county is in a process of developing the selection criteria through a cannabis dispensary selection committee. And that committee will be responsible for selecting the applicant who will be awarded be able to apply for that license. The application process will likely open up in the springtime, but we're really excited to see economic development opportunities, especially in Soda Springs and North San Juan. And
Yeah, we would encourage anyone who knows anyone that might be interested in applying. It is definitely early in the process. The selection committee will meet in March, and then once they have defined their criteria for choosing an applicant, it will go to the Board of Supervisors for their approval. So it's still going to be, a process, and it's still early in that game. So.
yeah. All right. Some other stuff that we got going on is the fallowing. Fallowing was approved several years ago, and this really allows a farmer to still maintain their local permit, but if they need to just take a break for a year, it allows that process to unfold. I'll let you say more, Sue.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't like the news either to hear that someone needs to take a break, but it does preserve the land use entitlement. That's the important part. You've worked really hard for this ability to have cannabis. And so if you're taking a break, we have a pretty simple form. It's available on our website. And basically there's a small processing fee, and it's good for as long as you are fallow. So it doesn't need to get renewed every year. You can do it once. And when you're ready to come back in, you would just get in touch with our group and we would start the ball rolling again. And the advantage of doing it the right way, which is filling out this fallow form and notifying us, is that the county will leave you be while you're taking your break. You won't generate a tax bill that's inappropriate. You won't get, scale fee bills and toilet permit bills and ACP bills. So it's just the right way to notify us that you're taking a break, and then we're not, wondering where you've gone.
Yeah. Next thing I want to talk about is the tiny homes on wheels ordinance that was approved last year, and it was approved for permanent housing. And this is just has important implications for cannabis, especially for our early farmers that got early on when our ordinance passed. Is there is a requirement with our county cannabis ordinance that you have to have a permanent residence. And this just helps to expedite the process of building a house if there is not a resident on the permanent resident on the property, that a tiny homes on wheels, not tiny wheels on homes, tiny homes on wheels would qualify as permanent housing. Of course, you have to meet the county requirements.
So this particular area, as well as the next one that Diana is going to cover, which is called Title 25, both of these are aimed at the broader context of providing more housing affordability for our county. But we do see application to cannabis if somebody puts their infrastructure in place. So you still need septic and water and power, but the overall cost of getting that occupied primary residence going, it's going to be faster and less expensive. So we thought that would be a good tool to discuss.
Mhm.
And then did you want to cover Title 25?
Yeah, so Title 25 is also something that passed last year, and this is reduced regulations for rural owner-built homes. And under this ordinance, you don't have to fully comply with all provisions under California Building Code, which is Title 24. There instead, your structure would be evaluated under Title 25 standards, which focus on minimal health and safety requirements. And this is really important, especially many of our farmers on the ridge and in different parts of the county have lived in homes that are not fully permitted. And so this allows you to get to that permitted home status through a different avenue.
It's actually pretty huge. I started as a code officer, so coming across unpermitted homes was a heartbreaking experience. And this gives people a path towards compliance. So it may be applicable in a cannabis situation. If we get for instance, a new application and there's an unpermitted structure, this pathway will make it less expensive and actually make it feasible to come into compliance because for various reasons. But the main aspects to take away are there are less building inspections required, less engineering required. There's less requirements around sprinklers if the structure is less than 1,200 square feet. And also you can use your own milled wood. On the Title 24 side, there's some standards for milled product. And if you have an on-site mill yard or that wood came from somebody locally and doesn't have all the right, stamps on it, you'd be in a lot of trouble. But this allows those kind of things to get through. So less stringent requirements. The only other thing I will just mention is you would post a notice into the public record that building is a Title 25 building. So there is a reporting requirement.
And then, another thing that I wanted to let everybody know that we've been working on this past year, and this has been also based on member and, your comments from our business community here in the cannabis industry here in Nevada County, is it's about accessory buildings. So previous to our work on this, all accessory buildings that were being used for cannabis had to meet F1, which is a factory industrial commercial building standard. And we've been working with the county, specifically the building department, to create consistency with commercial agriculture, which their commercial accessory buildings are held to what's called U occupancy. And there are lots of different benefits for our community by allowing for U occupancy instead of F1 occupancy. But some important things to note, these would be for seasonal use only, not year-round work. And the activities in there would need to pose low safety risks. So storage of cannabis, cleaning of cannabis, and preservation of cannabis that goes along with storage. There would be a process to convert your structure if you already have one from an F1 to a U occupancy. And similar to accessory ag buildings, commercial ag buildings, it would remove some of the commercial requirements for fire, potentially for ADA, and potentially for road standards. This would not be for manufacturing or retail. You would still need a permitted building for that. But other uses, we're really excited to create consistency with the ag industry. The other thing that's really beneficial is that because we had F1 occupancy buildings in the past, that's a commercial standard, and it really prevented some people from getting the right insurance on their property. Now that this would be considered U occupancy, there could be some benefits of having greater accessibility to insurance.
I think that Diana covered that really well. I think this is a new and it's still evolving policy with the county. And so, what I'd want you to take away from our talk right now is that if you have something that you're approaching the county with, just ask. Ask your engineer on your behalf, or you can ask, could this classify as a U occupancy? And some of those are going to be discretionary, case by case, project by project. So I just encourage everyone to ask the question.
And it has not passed yet. It's still in process, as Sue mentioned. So we're ironing out the details. Alrighty, those are like the big topics we wanted to cover. At a state level, we are engaged in the appellation conversation. There's a lot of state stuff. I don't want to focus too much on state stuff, but I did relating to branding and marketing. We have a lot of people have asked us about branding and marketing and support for their businesses. We have a lot of webinars in our Get Legit series about providing branding, marketing, social media, even AI and marketing support, all focused on our industry and specifically small farmers. So really encourage people to look at our free webinars that we have and reach out to us here at the office. And we're also engaged and on the appellations conversation that's happening at the state level. And as the regulations are finalized, we'll be assembling meetings within the industry so that we can start talking about appellations here and what we would want that to look like for our community here.
My last comments are, we want you guys to succeed. And so don't think of, my group as regulators solely. Come to us when you have ideas, come to Diana and kick them around. And that's how these ordinances continue to change. And we would encourage you to do that.
Yeah. Thank you, Sue.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for participating, and reach out if there's anything that we can do. Erin will put in the chat how to contact the Cannabis Alliance, and Sue, you can put in the chat how to contact you.
Okay. I will just put my email in there. Susan.Kaplan with a 2 at Nevada County CA. Gov.
Awesome. Does anyone have any questions for Diana and Sue while we are here?
All right, I forgot about questions.
Questions? If you don't have any questions now that you can think of, you can always email us at info@nccannabisalliance.org or contact Susan at her email, susan.kaplan2@nevadacountyca.gov. And they are very knowledgeable, as you can tell, and I would be able to be happy to answer any of your questions. But if that's it for now, then Diana and Sue, thank you so much for being here. That was invaluable information, and we appreciate everyone for joining us. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.